everybody.
Hello.
We are 45 minutes late. Yeah, we do. 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. This gentleman in the UK is on 45 minutes ago waiting for us. You want to see us live? How are you doing, Asher?
I don't know. But difficult day.
Difficult day. Okay. So we're going to start with the assignment that we gave everybody. No big deal if you didn't do it. And in fact, if you're following along on this version of the book, there's an older version, right? We've talked about it already. Don't use that one. That's all there is to it. Just don't use that one.
You can use the older one. I don't know if there's any actual edits to the main story. It's just we're going to go.
We won't be on the same page, though.
Is it different?
I don't know. Who knows,
I
right?
guess it could be, right?
Okay. The thing I'd like you to do, Sarah, is tell me specifically what it is you're moving away from and what you're moving toward. So we had a really interesting experience with this assignment. Remember, we're putting ourselves into these characters. I've been reading ahead probably somewhere in this copy, which doesn't look like anything to you, but it is incorrect. It's the second book in the series. And what's really cool about this is there's a moment when he's talking with Govinda, and he basically says, wow, people aren't putting themselves in my books. They're just reading them for entertainment. And so that's something you were saying, and I wanted to say that he notes it again there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so put yourself into the seeker, aspirant, victim role. Into the role. Okay, everybody, here we're at, let's see. What are you moving away? You want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay, so I thought about this. What am I moving away from? Let's start with that. And primarily, it's a weird thing. It's a dichotomy. I'm moving away from fear, but I'm also moving straight into it. It's kind of funny. I think it's funny because I'm identifying the fears in my body. It's the process I'm going through right now. We'll talk a lot more about that in these books. And I'm going into them. So I'm going into my fears. So oddly enough, I'm trying to get away from them, but I'm not. But I'm doing that by going into them. So I'm moving away from my fears by going into my fears. And digging through these fears down to the core fear of all fears, which we're going to read about in about 2 minutes, 5 minutes.
When you say going into your fears, you mean, consciously addressing them.
Yeah, and feeling them and embodying them and doing the math and getting down to what I'm really afraid of, which is always some form of death, kicked out of the tribe. And for me, I've created an image that really works for me, which is I'm on an island and everybody says, you got to get off, vote it out. Fuck you, you're out. Go home, leave. And I get in this little boat on a black abyss of a sea, and it's leaking and it's cold and it's just shoreless. And the boat's going down and I'm going to go down into the abyss. I'm coming back home to God, to ocean. And when I was a kid, when I looked down into the water, that was the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. Like it would just fuck me up.
Super deep, dark
ocean
water.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story that really fucked me up. We had a little boat on Deer Creek Lake, which is right by here, growing up. And one day, we were waiting for my mom backed the truck in. My dad takes the boat. I'm on the boat. My mom goes to park the car. And we're just farting around out there. And then we come up to a buoy because they've got a waveless wake area. And we're just stopped by it, waiting for my mom to come down. And I'm just on the side of the boat, fucking with the buoy. And then I'm a kid and I start to think, why is this thing not floating the fuck away?
Yeah.
I'm just a kid. And then I go, Dad, why is this in it? He goes, oh, it's anchored. And I was, and so I turn it sideways and I look, and at the bottom is a chain, and the chain goes into the darkness. And I fucking lost it. Sorry, but that's what happened. I literally lost my fucking mind. Yeah. And so that's always terrified me. So I go there. I go down into the dark. I remember being at a hot springs once, and they had hot springs and cold ones. And I would go into the cold, and I'd go under the water. It was just ice cold, and you'd go back and forth. And people like it, and I hated it, but I did it anyways. And I'd close my eyes in the dark, and I'd pretend I was going down into the abyss to scare myself, to face my fear that when I die, there will be nothing else. So as far as a mission statement, taking it to a mission statement is I want to grow up. I want to stop living with enclosed things that control me, things that are put upon me that I didn't choose. I want to become sovereign, and that is taking me into my fears and my attachments. And even something simple, let me point this out. Like, there's a piece of me, I didn't choose to love you as my son. Right? And there's a part of me that pisses me off. Like, I want to be at free will at it. Like, I choose.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wired to love you. You don't have kids, but you just get wired. And that's not my choice. I didn't choose to be wired to love you.
It's an interesting thing to resent.
It's an attachment.
Yeah.
It's an attachment. It's fear-based. So I love you because of fear, not because I really like you. And I do really like you. And we're not trying to be funny here. Trying to be real. So as a mission statement, I want to grow up and I want to be free of my fears and integrated with the universe. And it's a dream. So let's make it a really fucking good dream. I don't want to live in scarcity. I want to live in full abundance. And it might be boring to drop all the drama, but I'm okay with that. I really am. That's where I'm headed. Where are you headed, Asher? Or where are you headed away from, and where are you headed towards?
Well, I was telling you earlier, in a general sense, I try to be more general and then be more specific.
Yeah.
In a general sense, I feel like I am moving away from childhood and towards adulthood. But at a more specific level, it would be like away from, I guess, ignorance as Jed would define it.
How would Jed define it?
Which is by not information that you don't know, information you think you know, but
Yeah.
So it's wrong knowing,
Yeah, wrong.
So I need, like, the biggest thing for me is to move away from that and to move towards, I guess, just more, I don't know, I was going to say more self-awareness, but it's very hard, honestly. It's funny, I don't know, we mentioned when he says no worries, man, a couple times. And the issue is, it really is a difficult assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
spoiler alert, Sarah's going to have problems with it in the future. Right?
Yeah.
In fact, yeah, real serious problems, which was funny. I mean, we had a moment where he was saying, I'm having trouble with this. And I literally said, no worries, Mom. I mean, you're actually panicking just like she did.
Well, I think that something I'm just remembering now is that I think it's supposed to be like this on purpose. Like the idea of just, because when the question is asked so generally, the issue is that it can then apply to so many different aspects of your life. It's like, within what context are you moving away from something towards? And so because you have to start analyzing those different contexts, or at least this is for me, and then I have to try to make a definitive, point on something, but then to do that, I would have to get more detailed and dig deeper. So it's like, obviously it's a wonderful assignment because it is hard.
Cool. So I read something, because I'm ahead, I'm incorrect, and I read something that I'm going to read now because I think you kept saying it over and over and over again last week. about how important everything is in this first chapter?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Julie, character you're going to meet. Actually, she's coming up in the first book, okay? And so she's also in the second book.
We're just jumping to this.
I just want to read the one piece to her, right? Just one little piece. She writes a little piece, that's all. She's speaking to Jed. You said it in the first chapter. I never paid enough attention to that chapter. Now it seems like the foundation upon which the rest of your book sits. So again, I'm not spoiling what that foundation is, though we're going to do that right now. So someone else noticed that too. So you've noticed that. I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's what I was referencing. I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to.
You got some things?
Well, I just want to go over what I wrote down.
Okay.
I haven't actually done it, so I'm just going to read it out loud. So I wrote, stake life upon truth, because I think that's the first line or something, or the name of.
That's the.
Is that going to work? Miss it or don't do that again.
I will not do that again. We had
autofocus got messed
Yeah,
up.
our autofocus got fucked up last
And
time.
then I wrote that which cannot be simpler, which is the title of the first chapter, actually, and description of enlightenment. I wrote he establishes that he's claiming enlightenment from the very beginning. That's kind of the whole idea of this, is the showcase of enlightenment. I wrote pointy little brains because for analysis, and act but don't reflect on the fruit of the act. It was a really good discussion.
And if you haven't seen the video last week, it was really good. It's we couldn't do live for various reasons, so it's been uploaded, and it came in 3 pieces.
Yes.
But it's all one video.
Yes.
And somewhere in there, you'll see Asher and I do bibliomancy, which we just did in the page before with Arjuna, and had a great experience with it.
And the last thing I'll mention is Sarah's thing about find out what's true first, then I can save the whales or save whatever.
Yeah.
And I liked that.
I did too.
Find out what's true first, and then you can do whatever you want. Yep. Okay.
Okay. Here we go. So I'm going to go back 1 paragraph to give you a little context. She's a little worried, and he said, just file your flight plan in the most economical terms. That doesn't sound so hard. And she says, I guess not. And he says, it's not a race. It's just life. There is no finish line, no winners or losers. Give some thought too. It all ties in together. Come see me in the next few days and let me know what you've come up with. So she will be visiting again later on in the book. So here we go. This is meaty. We're about to go into meatiness. I've read this 30 times. I've come back to it over and over. Sarah labors under the same misconception everyone does. She believes in the broadest sense that something is wrong and that she can make it right. And she's not just talking about in the world, but in herself. There's something wrong with her, and she can make it right. He's saying that's a misconception. What that something is, what's wrong with it, and how it can be fixed all differ from person to person, but the general pattern is always the same. Something is wrong, and we've got to fix it. General pattern. So when you meet people out there, ask them, what do they think is wrong, and what do they think needs fixing? And start to analyze them that way. And of course, when you wake up in the morning, you ask yourself, what do I think is wrong and what do I need to fix? What is wrong for you right now that you think you need to fix?
I would like you to just read the book.
Huh?
Because you're not even talking to me.
I am talking to you. Okay. The truth, though, is that nothing is really wrong. Nothing is ever wrong, and nothing can be wrong. It's not even wrong to believe that something is wrong. Wrong is simply not possible. As Alexander Pope wrote, one truth is clear, whatever is right. Wrongness is in the eye of the beholder and nowhere else.
I like that quote. whatever that last say.
Wrongness is in the eye of the beholder and nowhere else.
No,
The one before.
the quote by the dude.
One truth is clear, whatever is right.
Yeah, I like that.
The perception of wrongness, however, is absolutely critical to the perpetuation of the human drama, right up there with the illusion of separateness and the certainty of free will. Drama requires conflict. No conflict, no drama. If something isn't wrong, then nothing needs to be made right, which would mean that nothing needs to be done. Heights need not be scaled, nor depths plumbed. Wealth and power need not be acquired. Future generations need not be spawned. Art need not be created, nor skyscrapers erected. Wars need not be fought. Religions and philosophies need not be devised. Teeth need not be flossed. Good. The belief that something is wrong is the fire under the ass of humanity, is how I explain it to Sarah. Of course, wrongness isn't entirely imagined. A certain amount of rightness and wrongness is hardwired into the human machine. Hunger is wrong, eating is right, celibacy is wrong, seed sowing is right, pain is wrong, pleasure is right, and so on. But those are all biological and directives enforceable only within the context of the physical organism, violations resulting in progressively worsening discomfort and possible death. So for me, that was important to discover that difference. There are biological wrongs.
Yeah.
So you don't just pretend if someone's chopping your leg off with an axe, or you're super, super hungry, or you're super thirsty, or you're super cold, that you don't sit there and go, oh, it's all right.
No.
Right?
No, it's just, I don't know, those things just force you to acknowledge, the external.
Yeah. Where then does wrongness reside? Outside of our physical organism? And the obvious answer is nowhere. But if this whole existence thing is to have any dramatic element to keep it interesting, it needs conflict, and so an artificial wrongness must be inserted into the mix. Fear. Fear of the hollow core, fear of the black hole within, fear of non-being, fear of no self. The fear of no self is the mother of all fears, the one upon which all others are based. No fear is so small or petty that the fear of no self isn't at its heart. All fear is ultimately fear of no self. So I was talking about my journey out on the lake, getting kicked out of the tribe or the water and going down into the abyss. That's the no self for me. And it's really important for me in this process to do the math. But whenever I get afraid or anxious or attached to something, I'll go into a meditative state and I'll write it out, and I'll track it back to what I'm really afraid of. And it always tracks back towards a death, towards isolative no self, to nothingness, to the fact that there might be nothing after I die, that it's over, that I go back into the ocean. If you saw an ocean of the infinite and you scooped up a cup of it, we'll talk about that later too, and say that cup is me. And then when I die, I would be poured right back in. So I'd go back home, but the me part would go back into the water. And that's terrifying to the me part. It can be really terrifying. Mm-hmm. So that's the no self. It's the same as saying you're all self, right? Or infinite self, because you go back to the ocean.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good analogy, but ultimately my brain still has a hard time even. I don't know. It's a hard thing to grasp, I guess, but not really, because what helps me with it is when I think of bugs and decomposition and stone, like old stone. You look at layers and everything, that everything is recycled. Every single, there's no such thing as waste, really.
What works for me is a tree, it falls and then it decomposes into dirt. And out of the dirt grows another tree.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So some of the assumptions here that he's working with, right, is that there is, first of all, that there's nothing wrong, that there's an ego drama going on that we're creating in our heads. That's the first assumption. He talks about it a lot. He's going to go into it. You'd want to explore that and investigate it on your own. The next is that it is all fear, and that it is all trackable back to the no self, to dying and having nothing be after it. You know, wherever it goes, whether it goes back to the ocean, whether it goes decomposing back into a forest, to where, or nothing. You know, we have Christian mythologies that tell us that there's spirits, afterworlds. There's other Eastern mythology said we recycle in a, was it reincarnation?
Yeah.
Right. But what if there's just nothing? So when I did the work, I go to that place where there's nothing, and I track all my little fears in some way. They all go back there. So I found that to be true, but you're going to want to do your own work on that out there.
I think that I really like the idea of that, you know, what you said, it's like kind of like an ego manufactured mind game that everybody agrees exists or, you know, whatever the hell. But what I really liked is the idea that if there was basically you just have to imagine if all of the people were not on this planet anymore for whatever reason. It was just an empty planet. Would there be anything wrong? And the answer is no, probably no. I mean, no, there's nothing wrong. It's just a planet. So then why, when you bring the people in, is the wrongness? So the people are manufacturing that wrongness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's because if we didn't have a community of people constantly reaffirming everybody's fears and whatever, and have all these systems in place and structures and infrastructure that support fears, things like life insurance, etc., you know, all these things, like there would be less I don't know, anxiety and whatever the hell, fear actions.
Yeah. So let me go over a fear that I have, and I'll show you how I tracked it back. Right. So we have a dog in the family named Cinder, and she's just been a healthy, happy dog for 11 years. And out of the fucking blue, she's just got cancer and probably isn't going to last. So when I feel into her, and I had experience this weekend when at the show, I felt her. She's just not worried. She's like, yep, I'm going to die. She doesn't want to be in pain. Like biologically, she doesn't want to be in pain. And she doesn't, but she's not afraid. Like do. And as I was feeling into her, I was having an experience. I was in a meditative place at a concert with my family. And for a moment, I just felt out to her. I was riding the waves of the people there, and I could feel her. And she simply wasn't afraid. She simply wasn't afraid. But she was just there. And I realized that my love of her had hooks in it. Like I'm the one who's afraid. Right? And her death means I can die. And I could get hit sideways I'm a good person. She's a good dog. I'm a good person. So I could have this happen to me and I could die. And where would it happen if I died? What if there is no God? What if there is no universe? What if there is no reincarnation? What if it is me out on the fucking boat on the abyss and I go down and it just all went there for me. And so the tightness that I felt over my dog's sickness led right. I did the math. I meditated. I felt into it. It led right to no self, right to the abyss. And so can I love my dog without that fear? Because she's loving herself and us right now without that fear. And so when I say I want to move away from something, I want to move away from that type of fear, and I want to move towards that fearlessness. It's like, oh, I love you. It's great. You're going to die in 3 seconds. Well, goodbye. Love you. And it looks a little, it looks and it feels strange. It feels like unemotional attachment. But a lot of what I've called love and emotional attachment over the years is fear. And that pisses me off. He talks about that. Like, you have to have, like, you don't take this path because you want something. You take it because you hate something.
Yeah.
I hate that a lot of my love for my children, for my wife, for my dog is informed by fear. That pisses me off. Like, it's not real. I'm just a little pathetic piece of shit. Literally a piece of shit that loves you just because I'm afraid of dying. That doesn't mean, that's just shitty. I'm a piece of shit. I hate that. And that burns me to keep going. To just love, like we started this, to just love you without that fear. Enjoy every moment with my son. And one day one of us is going to go. So what? And really be so what about it? Because I was in the moment loving every bit with you. Cinder, my dog. Okay. Fear of the hollow core, wrote that. The fear of no self is the mother of all fears, the one upon which all others are based. So he's telling us this, and he's going to back it up a lot throughout all the books. But this is the start. Yeah. So the supposition, the theory, it's not a theory to him, but this is it. No fear is so small or petty that the fear of no self isn't at its heart. All fear is ultimately fear of no self. And what is enlightenment? I asked Sarah, but a swan dive into the abyss of no self. She doesn't answer. Fear, regardless of what face it wears, is the engine that drives humans as individuals and humanity as a species. Simply put, humans are fear-based creatures. It may be tempting to say that we are equal parts rational and emotional, balanced between left and right brain, but that's not true. We are primarily emotional, and our ruling emotion is fear. Fun, huh? I asked Sarah, who's looking a bit woozy at this point. When I ask students to define the thing they're heading away from and the thing they're moving toward, it's not because I have any need for those details, or even because I want students to clarify it for themselves. I really just want them to review their present heading, because if fate or providence has put them in front of me to hear the things I say, then a sharp course change is likely imminent, and that begins with the calling out of the present heading. So what he's really saying is, where are you now? Where are you at?
Yeah.
So for me, I think I've started to creep up on what he's called human adulthood. And there's some pieces of it that I'm infected like a disease of fear. And I'm still an utter little wailing, whining, bitchy child. And there's other areas and states I go into, you've been in those, where it's open and it's pure love. It's just one, and I'm okay with everything. And the fear has diminished to zero. Have you ever had times where the fear diminishes to zero?
Yeah.
But it's not abiding, is it?
No, and it is interesting because you can like understand a lot if you're really not feeling any fear, then you're open to feel a lot of other things and know a lot of other things. And then when fear comes back, it just doesn't. It's just relentless.
It's relentless and unforgiving, and it doesn't give a fuck what revelations and openness you just had. It grabs your body and it curls it up. That's kind of where I reach points where I feel like hateful towards myself, is when I curl in fear again. Yeah, I don't want that. We're going to talk a lot about how to kill it throughout these books. So Sarah gets the light version of this fear and wrongness monologue, partly for her benefit, partly for my own. I don't know how much of it she'll really grasp, but it won't hurt her to hear it. For my part, this is how I figure stuff out, by expressing it. That's how I learn what to say and how to say it. I didn't pick up the total knowledge package with this enlightenment deal, so if I want to understand something so I can teach it, I pretty much have to figure it out for myself. i.e., figure it out for yourself and myself.
Yeah.
Do the work. I swear to God, somewhere in here he says, do the math and do the math. And that's this phrase. I've got it written on my wall out here, do the math. Keep going.
Yeah.
Should I keep meditating? She asks, a little desperate for something familiar she can cling to. Oh, yeah, absolutely, I say. And she seems relieved to hear it. In terms of enlightenment, it doesn't matter much if she meditates or not, or whether she eats meat or not, or whether she gives to charities or steals from them. I know, though, that she has already been destabilized enough for one conversation. The objective of today's lesson is to open her up to a new way of thinking about what enlightenment means. So I'll read that for you. The objective of this chapter is to open you, listener, up to a new way of thinking about what enlightenment means. That's one good thing about these books. You come away knowing some terms.
Yeah. Very good terminology.
And of course, we're not going to tell you what it means yet. If I start trying to dismantle her false preconceptions too quickly, she'll simply scurry back into whatever Hindu, Christian, Buddhist, New Age melange she emerged from to find her way here. We're sitting on the front porch of my house amid the endless farmland of America's heartland. It used to be my house anyway. Now it's more like a rural American ashram project that belongs to everyone who takes part. I used to be the one who cleaned it and maintained it and made improvements and did all the chores, but these days I'm like a prince in his palace. I haven't swung a hammer or emptied a wastebasket in years. I never decided to be a prince. It just happened when I wasn't looking, and it's not the sort of thing you can really bitch about. Sarah is not especially unique in terms of the type of people who find their way here. She doesn't arrive with a clean slate, so the first order of business is getting her to loosen her grip on, well, everything. Her opinions, her morality, her most cherished and deeply held beliefs. So again, talking to you, right? You don't arrive with a clean slate.
Right.
The first order of business is to getting you to loosen your grip on, well, everything. And this is something that Jed and his books have succeeded wildly with me. I have loosened my grip on everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Morality, opinions, cherished and deeply held beliefs, all out the fucking window. Yeah, they're gone. In short, my ego structure, my false self. Nobody shows up on our doorstep like an empty cup, just waiting to be filled with knowledge. And since the knowledge that gets dished out around here is almost certain to be in sharp conflict with the knowledge they arrived with, job one is prepping them for a major rewrite. When I first read these, it completely rewrote all my beliefs. Completely. You had an easier time of it because you were a kid.
And I agreed with most of what he was saying in the first place.
I did too, but I just realized that I was full of shit on every level. Yeah, I came from a Christian background.
Yeah.
The world existed and Jesus was up there somewhere. And if I did what he wanted, I would be rewarded. And if I didn't, I would be punished. Yeah, I believe that horse shit. Holy fuck. Yeah, you didn't have to undo that.
Alienating listeners.
Oh, am I?
I'm joking.
At any given time, there seem to be 15 or 20 students living in the house. They stay here for a while. They talk with me. They take care of things. They come, they go. There's another 100 or so who are like day students as opposed to boarders. They don't live here. They just come when they can or when they feel like it. They may come and go without my even knowing they were here. They show up, tend the gardens for a few hours, rewire the basement, prepare meals, build additions, gab with each other, paint things, drop off a gift, eat, whatever. That's how it is around here. It's all just flows, and everyone seems pretty comfortable with it. It's a beautiful spring day, late in the afternoon. The sun is dropping and the heat of the day is softened. A gentle breeze caresses the grass and waves. It's time to sit in contentment. I am quiet, dwelling in the sweet perfection of the moment, and I'm impressed that Sarah has the sense to do the same, or at least not to spoil it with chatter. Eventually, time swallows the moment, and I observe its passing with gratitude. One of the guys sticks his head out to let us know there's food available for those who want it. I can smell it. The vegetarians have been at it again. Someone brings me a tray with a bowl of rice and dal and some garam masala and a set of chopsticks. As soon as the odor meets me, I know that Sonia has done the cooking. Sonia has done the cooking, and I'm eager for the food. I eat and watch as the sunset displays more shades of pink than anyone could have suspected. Gradually, the pinks become reds, the golds and the clouds pick up every nuance and light up the sky in a resplendence that promises heaven. I wouldn't mind dying now, I think, as the day dies. But then I remember, I've got a book to write.
It's really good.
Okay, your reflections on the first chapter.
I think he lays it all out in its most, in barest bones, and even has, an assignment in there. So it's just, going over the wrongness is in the eye of the beholder. I love the whatever one truth is clear, whatever is, or something. I don't remember what that was. I think I miswrote it. The illusion of separateness. I like that. That perception of wrongness is critical. This was my observation. The perception of wrongness. He was talking about like how wrongness is in the eye of the beholder, and all of the all motivation is based in the idea that something is wrong. So I wrote, the perception of wrongness is critical to the functionality of the dream state.
Yeah.
Of the egoic human situation that's happening.
One truth is clear, whatever is right.
Thank you.
Yeah, have you ever met someone where something is wrong? Something is very, very wrong. Like, it is wrong. And you meet someone who doesn't agree with you. They're like, meh. Right? I have, my father is 86 years old. 86? Is he 8 or 87? It's 86. And he's getting old. I mean, he's just normal, getting old. And in some ways, everything is wrong to him. Everything. I mean, being around him helps me see that things are not wrong. I think, he's heading towards the end of his life, and everything's wrong. Everything. Just he has a bent that everything is wrong. And even things that aren't wrong. And then there's a lot of it that nothing is wrong, is there? I mean, that's the candle. That's what keeps him going, is that something's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's probably, I mean, I'm the same way. I'm not putting my dad under the bus. I'm going to throw myself under that bus with him. Often just have a problem with something in the day, and I think it's wrong. And I've had called you before, and you're like, nope, it's not wrong. Relax,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think if I have any regular interaction with like this conceptual frame of wrongness. I think I feel like I have like too much acceptance of that. Like to the point where sometimes it's like when you have to be like, oh, well, like, I don't know. I feel like I really agree with it already now. Because I've had a lot of examples of things in my life that were, like, for instance, my mother dying, that I was surrounded by people telling me, how much of a tragedy it was and how wrong it was. But it actually in our life was like a massive blessing. Completely changed, completely right-turned my childhood towards positivity after that. So that's an example I have, I guess, in my life of like why I think I accept things people would say are wrong first, because I have evidence in my life of those things not being as wrong as people are saying.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a question. Do you want to stop this and then restart it for the next chapter, which is a poem? And then
Just a poem?
Yeah, it's just a poem.
Let's just read the poem.
We'll just read the poem.
And then
we'll edit the field.
Then we'll end We can use the restroom and
come back.
and then start.
We'll be back. Here we go. So chapter 2, there's no real chapter numbers. It's called Paradox, and it's a poem by none other than the very Jed Mckenna. Would you like to read it?
Sure. You will never achieve spiritual enlightenment. The you that you think of as you is not you. The you that thinks of you as you is not you. There is no you, so who wishes to become enlightened? Who is not enlightened? Who will become enlightened? Who will be enlightened? Enlightenment is your destiny, more certain than sunrise. You cannot fail to achieve enlightenment. Were you told otherwise? Irresistible forces compel you. The universe insists. It is not within your power to fail. There is no path to enlightenment. It lies in all directions at all times. On the journey to enlightenment, you create and destroy your own path with every step. No one can follow another's path. No one can step off the path. No one can lead another. No one can turn back. No one can stop. Enlightenment is closer than your skin, more immediate than your next breath, and forever beyond your reach. It need not be sought because it cannot be found. It cannot be found because it cannot be lost. It cannot be lost because it is not other than that which seeks. The paradox is that there is no paradox. Isn't that the damndest thing? Jed Mckenna.
Is it just me, or are you hearing Excision's The Paradox? The Paradox.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that poem?
I guess it just feels like it leads me in circles.
So what Jed is doing here, and he's starting to lay it out for us, that when you get through the layers of you, so there's a common misconception, and I believe this too, that there's somewhere inside of me was a truth, like a core, a nugget. And there's an old saying, it's a spiritual saying, that you're a spiritual being having a physical experience. Right?
No.
It's just not true at all. You know, there is no core. I mean, this is Jedism. This is Jed thinking, and when you get down his rabbit hole, this is where you go. There's no core. There's no core that's me. In the Mormon theology, there would be like a spirit. You have a spirit. It's a core spirit, and then there's a soul. A soul is a word. Even core deeper in that in Mormon is that underneath your soul and spirit is something called just a pure intelligence. It's uncreated. Even God didn't create that. So you got a core. It's a core. There is no core. There's no you. You're just all this shit. Layer after opinion, after experience, after thing, after thing, after thing, layer. Jenny, your mother and my wife, she likes to look at, she's a dust bunny. She's a little lint roll in the belly button. She's just a dust bunny. Just a whole bunch of dust that got collected. Just collected through years. And if you just kind of like pat it down, there's nothing in there. And there isn't anything. So he's introducing that thought to you here. He's introduced it in the first chapter to say there's this no self. What does that mean? And now he's trying to say a poem to add another layer to get you thinking, to get me thinking about the hollowness, to go, like, you just go in. Yeah, like for Jed, people looking out here, I'm going to look to you. You got to save me. You, anyone. But he said, just go inside, go until you just go to the core void. And then you look, and that's the Leviathan. That's the abyss. So I don't have to go out on the ocean. I can just look inside. And I did an exercise once, and I lay in bed. I couldn't sleep. And I said, okay, if you took away my sight, what would I be? Okay, well, I wouldn't have that input, right? And then my hearing, it says, okay, I don't get that awareness. And then taste and smell and feel. So I'm just this little thing. And I go, well, I'd have my memories of my life. Yeah, so I'm just sitting in a cell I can't move, I can't feel, I can't taste, I can't do anything, but I can think. And then it just came, and I said, what if you took my memories from me? And I just sat there. And I just sat there in this meditative state and went, oh, like there's nothing there. That's what I discovered. You can try that if you want. There's just nothing there. I just went to this meditative state. If you took it all away, stripped it, you got to the core, there was nothing there. There was not a core that I could call me. So he's introducing this concept. You're very free to say, fuck you, Jed. You're wrong. But
even within the language of it, where he's saying, who will be enlightened? And say that he's saying that when somebody's saying, I want to be enlightened, it's like the paradox is you saying, I want to not be I.
Yeah.
Like that is not a thing you can logically want, and doesn't make sense to how your system is, how everything is set up. So, that's why I guess I just have something to comment on this. With the concept of him framing this book as him just trying to put the state of enlightenment on a pedestal and try to clearly explain it the best he can. He must have been doing that like towards a specific audience of people who like had an idea of what enlightenment was before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe you're right.
I never had that.
No.
I didn't know about it until I read this book. So it's it's a little bit annoying to me how much he just like reiterates his explanation. He'll go through it, and it's useful because of all the ego dissolving that has to happen for adulthood. Anyway, but it's difficult. That's the thing that has to be remembered when we're going through this, is that all of this, all of the enlightenment stuff really doesn't apply necessarily to, neither of us said enlightenment for where are we going, where are we heading towards.
Yeah. So I've been doing some thinking about that. This is a good question, or a good thing to bring up. But the piece of enlightenment that I've seen amongst who he's talking to, people who believe it's a non-judgmental state of just pure love, happiness. There's a bliss to it. You just accept all religions. You don't eat meat. You're a vegan. You're just a loving, sweet person. People could shit in your face and you would just go, thank you. And he's identifying, we'll get into it more, enlightenment as truth realized.
Yeah.
Where like words like compassion and heart have no use in this game. None. And you can be compassionate and have heart, and that's a great thing to want to do. Go do that. But in the way that we're going to define this game, that's not enlightenment. Enlightenment is truth realized. And he said it in there, I think, didn't he? Like a murderer could be enlightened. Why not? That just has nothing to do with it. So he really is ripping away from a whole culture of new ages and sweet Jesuses that really believe enlightenment is the ultimate level of joy.
Right. So there was like a mass collective cultural misunderstanding.
I got it.
Or for false information.
I got it for you.
That he was cutting through.
Right. So we talked about what you do for a business, Rave Relief, right?
I don't know if we talked about it.
Well, we're talking about it.
No, I did. We mentioned it.
Yeah, Rave Relief. So he helps the community harm reduction, right? So I know that there's people in your community who have psychedelic experiences at your concerts, right?
Yeah.
And it's like God, unity, oneness, right?
Yeah.
That's what they think is enlightenment.
Right. I think, and he tries to explain that what most people are calling, he even said it to Sarah, what most people are calling, and that's defining as enlightenment, really just are descriptions of a state of, a state you are in, and then you are not in after it. It's not nobody. What did he say? Nobody abides in
Oh, he does say
in
that.
constant bliss or something. That's just something out of a fairy tale.
Yeah. And that's what he's saying about enlightenment. That the one advertised, the state of bliss. I want to be enlightened. I want to be happy. I want to have all spirit. So he's taking it on straight ahead, and he's layering in what it really is. So that's where we're at with the first chapter. Again, that first chapter is to you. It's to me. You're the newbie. You're coming into the game. You're like, what is this? And he's saying, we're at you. Why are you reading this book? It's going to change you. Yeah. And I have never had anyone read this book and not get changed drastically. The least ones are kids because they've got less shit.
Yeah, I mean,
they get changed anyways, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us on this Thursday in March. Let's see, it's the 14th, 2019. We're actually going to be back for the next chapter, same day. We'll call that a separate live thing. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a piss. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them down below. And like we said last time, if we get a chance, we'll go through them. And if it's indicated, we'll answer them. Yeah. But if it's not, we won't. If you do have questions,
questions or comments, just use the comment section.
Use the comment section. And we will see you shortly after this short break, after this commercial break. Okay.